What's up, everybody? Welcome to the FantasyHolics. We are a week away from NFL football, and we are still here giving you some draft strategy. We're going to go over the wide receiver position, overvalued, undervalued, rookie, league winner. Before we do that, I'm Josh Rodriguez. Bo's with me, Patrick's with me, Brant's with me. Guys, how's it going? How's everybody doing?
Ready for some football.
We're here. We made it.
One week from tonight, we'll be immersed in the Lions-Chiefs shootout. Oh, it's going to be so good. Oh,
so many fantasy points, baby. I love it. Before we get started, though, I do have one question before we give you the overvalued, undervalued, and all that good stuff. Wide receivers, are wide receivers the new running backs in the sense where you build your team around wide receivers? Bo, I'll start with you.
Yeah, for me, Josh, I think there's three wide receivers that are up there that you can build a team around. In my opinion, it's Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and I think this is the year that Garrett Wilson plants his flag and fully takes over that role. I think you could have made the argument in years past for Cooper Kupp, but those guys I'm willing to take in the first and build my entire roster around them. If I don't get one of those guys, I'm probably still going running back early.
Patrick, what about you?
Yeah, that was my entire thesis statement. I had Garrett Wilson. This time next year, Garrett Wilson will be wide receiver 3 going off like in the first round of drafts. I think he's just tremendous. I haven't seen a single flaw in anything he's done. Oh, and especially if Aaron Rodgers stays. Oh, man. Yeah. And you can, in like a dynasty or a redraft, you have these receivers locked in for years and years and years, whereas you have running backs that are 3 or 4 years, they're looking for a new contract. They may not get that second contract. And receiver is, nothing's really safe in fantasy. It's the safest bet in fantasy right now, I feel.
Brand, what do you think? Wide receivers king?
Yeah, there's so many out there too that are valuable nowadays. Like because teams are so pass friendly. PPRs is obviously has taken off and it is the standard for fantasy now. So yeah, wide receivers are the way to go in my mind. But like Bo said, if you get one of those first 3, then you're good to build around them. Other than that, it's almost running back in the first round and just wait. I mean, because there are so many out there.
All right, well, let's get started. Wide receivers, overvalued. Bo, who's your overvalued wide receiver?
Oh my goodness! So Brant just brought up a perfect point for me to slide into this, and he brought up how pass friendly the NFL is as a whole. Do any of you guys happen to know who the least pass heavy team in the NFL was last year by chance?
Least pass heavy. I don't know that. Titans.
It was the Chicago stinking Bears.
Yeah.
All right. And that offense is putrid in all things fantasy. Unless you own Justin Fields, then it was very, very fun. But here's the deal. I think DJ Moore is extremely overhyped. This is a guy who's coming off of a season of 118 targets, 63 receptions, 888 yards receiving, 7 total touchdowns last year in a Carolina uniform. The Bears move the number 1 pick to Carolina. They get a big haul in return, and they make sure they go get DJ Moore so Justin Fields has a weapon. My problem with that more lies with Justin Fields than it does DJ Moore. And let me tell you why that is. So Justin Fields is below league average passer in almost every statistical category when it comes to passing. He only completed 60.4% of his passes last year. And again, like I said, they ranked dead last in passing offense. Fields below average accuracy rating. He was number 25 in the NFL last year in accurate passings. And there was Marcus Mariota was above him. And as a Falcons fan, that was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. And then here's the other thing that I think really hinders DJ Moore's ceiling is Justin Fields was number 22 overall out of starting quarterbacks at deep ball completion percentage as well. So he's not connecting on deep balls either. It's all the success last year, if you watched his passing plays, was broken plays, finding Cole Kmet, Darnell Mooney on just lucky broken plays. Kind of what Russell Wilson used to have with Tyler Lockett, Brant, except for those two were hyper good at it. Whereas I don't think that's what's going to happen here. So for me, I think with DJ Moore being drafted as the fourth player in the fourth round, the number 19 wide receiver off the board, that's his ceiling. I don't see any way for him to get past that. And for me, that if you're drafting this guy in the fourth round, hoping him to be your wide receiver 1 or your wide receiver 2, I think it's going to leave a really, really bad taste in some folks' mouth this year.
A lot of people are high on him, man. A lot of people disagreeing with you right now. I like it, though. I like the boldness of that. Pat, what about you? Overvalued?
Christian Watson is really too high for me right now. He is going really high. It's almost as if people think, oh, yeah, it'll be a seamless transition between Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love. I don't know if that's exactly going to be as seamless as people think. Christian Watson had over 5 catches in a game twice last season with the great Aaron Rodgers. He had a lot of drops in college. I think it was a 12% drop percent in college. And his only 2 good seasons, another thing that kind of alarms me is his production in college wasn't very good, and it was at North Dakota State University tied to Trey Lance. I'm not sure Watson's really that good. The amount of like the sample size we have of him isn't substantial. It was at a small school tied to a quarterback that's struggling. He had a lot of drops. He's going to Jordan Love. There's a lot of targets to be had from the Allen Lazard leaving. Allen Lazard had 100 targets last year. Watson will get a lot of targets. I just don't think at the current ADP and draft capital, I really think he could leave a sour taste in your mouth this year.
All right. Bo, Brent, you have anything to say about that? I feel like you guys were about to chime in there.
I'm the biggest Christian Watson truther I think I know.
Oh, man.
Outside of Packers fans, all right, okay, outside of Packers fans, I will say I agree. I think his ADP is a little higher than it should be.
Oh, there you go.
Even though I do love him, and Brant asked me when Pat put out his list, are you gonna go in on it? I said no, and the reason is because the ADP is probably, if his ADP was 2 rounds lower and we were having this conversation, I might be flipping my desk right now. But respectfully, I can appreciate it. I get it.
Overvalued's overvalued, right? It is what it is.
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely.
There we go. All right, Brant, who do you have overvalued?
I've got Devontae Adams. These guys going in the top 10 wide receivers. He's got a new quarterback in Jimmy G. Jimmy G has never had a wide receiver get targeted more than 150 times in a season, and Devontae Adams has had to rely on that quite a bit, being targeted so much. Jimmy G's average depth of target is 7 yards. I don't see him throwing up too many 50-50 balls for Adams. I just don't. I could still see Adams being a top 20 wide receiver. Don't get me wrong. I could still see him falling in the top 20. But that end of the first, beginning of the second, where Adams is going a lot because of his name value, really has a lot to do with it. He's 30 years old. Like I said, he went to Vegas to go with Derek Carr. Derek Carr's out the door. You got Jimmy G there. You got Hunter Renfrow. You got the brand new tight end in Mayer. You got Jacoby Myers. You got Josh Jacobs back. That's a lot of mouths to feed for Jimmy G. Yeah. I just don't see how Devontae Adams can sustain a top 10 value this year, and where he's going in drafts is just too high. I'm hitting the avoid button on him in almost every draft I've done.
All right. I actually had the same take as you. It's more of Jimmy G than it is Devontae Adams, but I'm with you on that. Let's do undervalued. Brant, we'll go in inverse order. We'll start with you.
Most undervalued wide receiver in the NFL, and that's Tyler Lockett. The man, he's gone over. He's been a top 15 wide receivers in the last 4 years. In full PPR, he's had over 100 targets and 1,000 yards, all in the last 4 years. He's always undervalued. He's going as the 30th wide receiver off the board, but yet he always seems to somehow find his way finishing inside the top 15. JSN's already banged up with his wrist. He's probably not going to be back to full health probably until about midseason. I do see him coming back and playing, but I don't see him being full health and having full strength in his wrist. Lockett's just always a guy that's always hanging around in the top 20, top 15. And you get him so late in drafts. Like I said, it's the 30th wide receiver off the board. This is a guy you can plug into your flex almost week in and week out. And when it comes down to the scramble get loose place, there's no better wide receiver in the NFL playing backyard football than Tyler Lockett. And Geno has, had that issue where he does play the backyard football with him. And I think Tyler Lockett does it again this year. I think he goes over 1,000 yards one more time and proves that he's still the most undervalued wide receiver in fantasy.
It's a little bit of a homerism in this, Brant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Brant is a Seahawks fan, for those of you who do not know. But yeah, I see what you're talking about, man. I do.
Some people
all right,
call
Patrick.
that a condition, Josh, but that's
Some people do. Listen, the Seahawks have a Super Bowl ring recently, so I can't really.
okay.
Yeah. Well, but both of your teams have blown Super Bowls to the New England Patriots. Mine hasn't. We finished the job. I'm sorry. That was a low.
And my team lost the entire Peyton era to Tom Brady. So
That's right. Oh, that's right. God, Tom Brady's victimized everybody.
Who hasn't he victimized?
The New York Giants, baby. The New York Giants he hasn't victimized. All right. Sorry about that. That was a low blow. Let's move on. Patrick, undervalued. Who do you have?
Undervalued is Mike Williams. I feel that Kellen Moore going over to the Chargers is going to help Keenan Allen specifically, Austin Eckler. That whole offense is just going to take it to the next level. And the beneficiary is going to be Mike Williams because they've had the Keenan Allen and Mike Williams traditionally only lined up in their traditional positions under Joe Lombardi. Kellen Moore has had them everywhere, not playing their traditional positions, getting some good one-on-one matchups. And Mike Williams, this could come back and bite me. He's had some really underrated years. He's had 10 touchdown years. He's had 2,000-yard years. He was on pace for his best season ever last year with maybe like a vanilla offense. With Kellen Moore, I think he's really going to be he's going to have a career year, and he's going so late in drafts because he's burned a lot of people. I get it. But I think this is that outlier year where Mike Williams you get him in the fifth, wherever you're getting him, he gives like 1,000 yards, 9 to 10 touchdowns, and you're getting him so late. He's like a fixture in your lineup every week.
He's worth the risk for sure.
Yeah.
Bo, undervalued. Who do you have?
So I apparently dove a little deeper. My undervalued guy is completely going undrafted. I have Alec Pierce of Patrick's Indianapolis Colts.
Wow.
And for me, this is a guy that I was fairly high on coming out of the University of Cincinnati. Again, I was very high on Desmond Ridder when Desmond Ridder came out of college, so it only made sense that I liked Alec Pierce a little bit too. And I think you really saw Alec Pierce start to come on down the stretch last season for the Indianapolis Colts. And honestly, maybe for personal reasons, I'm not the hugest of Michael Pittman fans either. But the one thing that really stands out for me is last year, Alec Pierce's yards per reception, 14.5, was good enough for the 22nd overall wide receiver in yards per reception. And again, I think you put in a big arm quarterback like Anthony Richardson. Patrick, I'm sorry if this is the first time you've thought of this, but I do think the Colts are going to play from behind a touch next year. And so you're going to have to air it out a little bit. And especially the first 4 weeks without Jonathan Taylor, I think that's going to really I think it absolutely kills the Colts. I hope Jim Irsay wakes up from whatever he's got going on, because he's totally screwing my seasons over here with Jonathan Taylor, where I own shares. But he doesn't really care about me, and that's understandable. But again, I do think Alec Pierce could benefit. Both of Pierce and Pittman are competing in my mind to be that guy for Anthony Richardson. And I do think there's going to be some playground plays happening in Indy as well. I just think Alec Pierce is a little faster than Michael Pittman. He's a little bit better at tracking those deep balls than Pittman. And as long as Anthony Richardson's not throwing the ball up and hitting the rafters like he did at his pro day, and he gets some of these balls in play, I think Alec Pierce benefits from it. I think this will be a very Christian Watson-esque season, where you could see Pierce have a couple touchdown games here and there and finish with like 6 touchdowns where they come in all like 3 games.
Not bad for someone who's not being drafted, not even valued, not even undervalued. He's not even valued. So that's a deep dive there. Like it. I like it.
It is.
All right, but we'll stay with you. You're rookie to draft.
So apparently, I just like talking about all you guys' teams because Josh, this is a guy you've heard me talk about on the show as well before. But Jalen Hyatt is one of my favorite rookies. Brant was on him before I was with the Tennessee Volunteers there. But this is a guy who has supposedly been clocked at 24 miles per hour in full pads. That is insanely fast. That's just freak athlete. Regardless of what position he plays, dude's going to have an impact in the league as long as he can stay healthy. Again, we know none of the New York Giants wide receivers stay healthy. So if he becomes the guy that does so, by virtue, he's going to have tons of opportunity for fantasy production because that wide receiver room's completely wide open. I think the nod has to go to Sterling Shepard, probably just because of how long he's been in that system, or with Daniel Jones, having a mini stroke here, with Daniel Jones. But I think Jalen Hyatt is going to come in. Brian Dable is smart enough of a coach. He's going to put this speed in the right place where he can make plays. I think you see a type of Debo-esque season for a guy like Jalen Hyatt, where they're running wide receiver end arounds, wide receiver screens, getting him the ball as quick as possible and letting him put his speed to good use.
And I hope you're right. He just switched to Odell Beckham's number 2, which is bold move, very bold move. So expecting big things.
Next year you'll be saying, who?
Yeah, I don't know about that. Oh man, I miss Odell to this day, but hopefully you're right.
All Jalen Hyatt has to do is make 2 spectacular catches, and he's got the same career.
And not go partying on a boat. But that's a whole other issue. Yeah, Patrick, who do you have? Rookie to draft.
Is Jackson Smith-Njigba. Man, he looks so good from day one. I loved him coming out of Ohio State. You can't go wrong with an Ohio State running wide receiver, and it's almost like he's the heir apparent to Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett didn't have his first 100-catch season to age 27. Jackson Smith-Njigba's 21. What if you can get the entirety of the Tyler Lockett career 5 years sooner? Oh my God. Njigba is awesome. I love him. He is tremendous. As long as Geno Smith holds it together, man, he is going to be electric. Is more than electric. Whatever that word is. If Garrett Wilson's a top 3 receiver this time next year, Njigba might be the top 10 receivers. He's fantastic.
Wow. Brian, I'll ask you this too. I'll ask both of you. Are you worried about Geno a little bit? I mean, I know he had a great year last year, but it took him a while to get adapted to the league. Do you think last year was an aberration?
No, I think it's built around for him. I don't think he's our franchise quarterback. I don't see him there more than maybe 2 more years. I'm not worried about him this year. He definitely has been my backup in a lot of fantasy drafts because I'm not too worried about him, and he has an early bye week. So I do like Geno Smith. They put a bunch of weapons around him. I'm not too worried about him. They built up the line finally. It only took Russ leaving for us to finally invest in the offensive line. So don't be afraid to draft Seahawks wide receivers. So Brant, rookie, who do you have? Mine's Tank Dell there in Houston. It's a wide open receiving core. He ran a 4.440. He looked great in the preseason. He finished his college with 109 receptions, 1,398 yards, 17 touchdowns. He gets a quarterback who doesn't know who his number 1 wide receiver is going to be. He's still developing chemistry in CJ Stroud. That's a wide open offense. I just think this guy is a guy that could really step in and take over that role. I know there's a lot of young blood there to see what happens. But this is a guy that looked explosive in the preseason. He looked explosive last year in college. I think he's a guy that I'm willing to take a flyer on late in the last round of most drafts.
All right, and then we'll go back around the horn. Brant, your league winner from the wide receiver position.
My league winner is Michael Thomas. He's going close to the 50th wide receiver off the board. I know everyone's worried about his injury history and everything else. He's got a new quarterback, but at the 50th wide receiver, he's still going to be the second best wideout on his team in a pass friendly offense. I think, even when he's done it before. We've seen it plenty of time. In 2022, when he played in 3 games, he averaged 17 points per game in the games he did play. In 2020, where he played in 7 games, he averaged 20 and a half points per game. So even when he's on the field, he's putting up elite numbers for fantasy. Taking a stab at him as the 50th wide receiver off the board and hoping that he plays 17 games, that's not a bad deal for that when you're getting him so late in drafts. I'm not saying he's going to go out there and break records like he did a few years ago, but if we get him for 17 games, I could easily see him being a top 30 wide receiver that you get so late in drafts that you can plug into the flex and feel very comfortable with.
Michael Thomas, man, throwback name. People forget, man. I have him in a dynasty, so I'm hoping that you're correct about this. Patrick, your league winner wide receiver position.
Garrett Wilson. Man, he's going to be the third receiver off the board next year in his season with Mike White, Joe Flacco, and Zach Wilson. He still had 9 or more targets in 8 games, and those targets probably sucked. He was still incredible. I remember watching his tape coming into the league. I'm like, there's not a single flaw with his tape, his technique, his everything. He is just fantastic. If he has Aaron Rodgers next year, that'd be great. He's got Rodgers this year. He's got Rodgers hopefully next year. Oh man, like if he gets 9 Aaron Rodgers quality targets a game, holy cow, he is going to be a difference maker, and you're getting him probably a round or 2 later than you should. And it's like a changing of the guard. Like this time next year, Cooper Kupp might be fading, Diggs might be fading, Adams might be fading, A.J. Brown may start to, and just the cream is rising. The Garrett Wilson, the Amon-Ra's, they're going to be, this time next year, maybe top 3 to 5 receiver off the board. He's like, now's the time to get him in a dynasty or a redraft. Yeah, Garrett Wilson, my league winner.
All right. And Bo, your league winner.
Yeah, my league winner also comes from last year's wide receiver class and this guy was drafted in front of Garrett Wilson. I've got Drake London of my Atlanta Falcons, and again, this may be a little homer play, but ball don't lie, numbers don't lie. Currently, just to put this in perspective in redraft formats, Drake London is being drafted after, all right, Amari Cooper, Deebo Samuel, and DeAndre Hopkins. I'm just beside myself. When I put him out as my undervalued or my league winner, I didn't even realize he was this far down. This is a guy that was number 5 in all of the National Football League in target share of his team's targets. Now, granted, they didn't pass, but they obviously weren't the worst. We talked about the Bears earlier. And then on top of that, he was number 2 overall in target rate in all of football. So you're telling me this guy has that much volume from his team's passing, and I know it's easy to pump the brakes and say, well, now we've got Bijan, now we've got Kyle Pitts, but you know what else we have? We have a competent quarterback under center who is not Marcus Mariota. And Eagles fans, I'm sorry that you're now going through that, but better you than us. Marcus Mariota in 13 games last year had a 61.3% completion percentage. In 4 games, Ritter came in with a 63.5, which 2 points doesn't sound like an awful lot, but it absolutely is when you're talking about a guy like Drake London's catchable ball rate going from an 87.2 with Mariota to a 93.1 with Desmond Ritter. So the targets are still there for him. They're just much more catchable now, and Drake London's an absolute stud. This team's going to be in the red zone a lot more often this year than they were last year, thanks to Bijan. And I think Drake London comes down with double-digit touchdowns this year.
All right. Well, there you have it, our overvalued, undervalued rookie and league winners. Now, obviously, the season starts next week, so our next week's show is going to be completely different. We're going to be looking forward to week 1, your lineups, some DFS plays as well. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure to check us out every Thursday or every Friday right here on the FantasyHolics Podcast Network. For Josh, Bro, Patrick, and Brant, we'll catch you next week on the FantasyHolics.